Good afternoon. Welcome to today's HR Huddle. I'm Samantha Mansfield, and I get the pleasure of being with you today, along with Jennifer Wilson, our co founder of Convergence Coaching. If you're new to HR Huddle, this is a podcast where we talk all things talent and geared for HR professionals, but also leaders within organizations. And so, in that vein and in the focus for today, one of the things that we started doing is a series on leadership attributes. So, we wanted to be able to explore what are these important attributes of leaders and what does that look like? What are behaviors? How do we demonstrate them? How do we coach them in other people? And maybe why is it so important that we have some of these? And so today we wanted to be able to talk about trust. Now that's an easy one, right? If we ask people what's a leadership attribute of a great leader or somebody you really admire, it usually is one of those ones that shows on a very short list and is usually one that people can come up with quickly. But trust is actually a little deeper and a little more complex than I think we always give it credit for, because there's the element of people trusting us and earning trust, but there's also the element that we have to extend trust. And that's a piece that at least I find is one that comes up in coaching leaders, is being able to do that. And so that's where we wanted to focus today. And Jen, I don't know if there's anything else you wanted to add before we dive in.
I was just going to say that it's interesting because we're talking about being trusted and trusting others.
Mm-hmm.
And there are clear studies and there's all sorts of articles about it's hard for others to trust you if you don't feel like you trust others.
Yes.
So they're sort of connected, these two things. Like you can't be a super trusted person if you appear to be distrustful of others.
Right.
So we just have to pay attention to that piece, that we have to work on both sides.
Mm-hmm.
I do think most of us come up in our careers trying to be trusted.
Yeah.
So we're like keeping our commitments, following through, showing that we can deliver, keeping our word. We're trying to be respected and trusted, and we spend a lot of energy working on that. And I don't think there's too often that you and I find ourselves coaching in leaders in the profession. Hey, let's work on how much trust you are earning. Although, occasionally we run into it. Super rarely though. It's more like, hey, others don't think you trust them.
Mm-hmm.
So we're not working on that muscle very much. And I do think that that's probably just at all life stages, it's something to work on. It's not just as I'm coming up or when I first step into supervisory roles or when I first get to manage a client, I have to trust them and trust the team. But it's all the way up into retirement.
Yeah.
That I still have to keep extending that trust and practicing it. So maybe we could talk a little bit about different ways that we demonstrate the extension of trust, Samantha, and also ways that we demonstrate that we don't trust people.
Yeah. Well, and even just one quick thing before we even dive into that, Stephen R. Covey wrote a great book on this if you haven't read, and it's the Speed of Trust. And highly recommend, because it really does talk about why trust is so important in leadership and in organizations. So goodness, Jen, we could probably do an hour just talking about that very topic and the impact on organizations, but it is a great book. And one of the things that we have to do, even before we can start extending trust to others, is we do need to trust ourselves. And I think sometimes we lack doing that. We can create a lot of doubt in ourselves. And even like you're saying, Jen, when we get elevated and other people see it in us and we don't always trust ourselves, which may also play a part into where then we struggle with extending trust to others, because we can feel that against ourselves as well. So, when we talk about how does it show up that we're not trusting others, a big place that we see this is in the lack of delegation. We see a lot of people that will hang on to clients. They'll hang on to projects or committees or so many other things, right? And you'll hear language like, well, they've always been my client, or, I worry that anybody can treat them as well as I do or deliver on the expectations I've created with that client. And what that's really saying to our colleagues when we talk like that is, well, I don't trust that you can do as good a job as I can. And I don't trust that you would maybe do what's necessary in asking questions or coming to me if you, as the new server, really did need help in this area. And I would say delegation is one of the easiest first places for us to see that we're not extending trust.
Yeah. Delegation is like a sticky, thorny subject, right? We want, I think we're all in agreement. We're talent professionals on this podcast, so I think we're all in agreement that delegation is critical to success.
Yeah.
It's impossible for us to personally scale our expansive duties, our to grow upward in responsibility, to expand our reach as a leader or a manager without delegation. And yet, while we all would say, yes, agreed, we're on the same page, it's the one thing universally that we're all pretty poor at. And it's kind of like a thing like, all right, when I'm really at the breaking point, I'll finally delegate, right? And then, so we act like it's not like a continuous process that we should practice daily. It's sort of like this thing, like I'm going to stop and grocery shop, and oh yes, I'll also delegate, once a month or whatever. And that's a crazy way to look at it. So delegation is a daily practice. It has to be, and it has to be a constant discussion with self of, is this my highest and best use? Is there someone else on the team that could do it? Could this work be done at a lower cost per hour to us, whether it's client-facing work or not, doesn't matter. Am I too expensive to do this work? Does that make sense? Who could benefit from learning this? And that's often a question to ask. And so, first we need to screen everything we're doing from that. And then when we say, boy, we need to delegate, then we have to get over this hurdle you speak of, this mountain shaped hurdle called, ooh, if I give it away, will they do it as well as I do? Will it turn out as well? I think some people, aren't sure that they can trust that the person will care about it as much. There's all sorts of inner dialogue that we have, fear and uncertainty and doubt about giving it away. And there's no higher privilege than having a coach that believes you can do something before you believe you can do something. Yeah. Right? That's the ultimate act of trust, is to be a coach that's like, hey, I know you can, even though I've not seen you do it yet. I just know you can because I've seen you do a lot of other things. And delegation with trust, trusting somebody by conveying ownership of something that I own now, or conveying responsibility for something that I've always done or used to do. That is the ultimate act of a coach's act of trusting faith in someone else. And I don't think we really realize the massive, it's sort of like feeding and fertilizing and watering and sun shining on a plant all at once when we do that to someone. When we say, I trust you with this, they just kind of grow straight and tall and grow into that possibility. Yeah. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah. It is really impressive to see how it affects somebody's confidence. And many people will acknowledge that confidence is incredibly important to be able to develop a bench and people around you, and to develop a team. And giving your trust to somebody, it's a tremendous gift. We talk about feedback as a gift. I would say giving trust is a tremendous gift, and people really see when you do that, and can be tremendous caretakers for it. Because being able to to extend trust and being trusting, so much of it has to do with our competency and our character. And so, if you're trusting me, I've got that competency, I've got the character that you believe I'm going to represent that, then you giving that affirms that those things are true in me, and that's how people will feel about that. And then the person who's being trusted needs to work on the communication so that they continue to keep that trust, right? I mean, that's part of the whole dynamic of trust is character, competence, communication, as Kevin broke that down. Something else that I would say in sticking with communication as a way of demonstrating that we extend trust is transparency. So where I said just a moment ago that when we extend trust, we want that communication to come back, right? So that we know that that's safe and what's happening with what I just entrusted to you. But also to extend trust means how transparent are you being in your communication? And when we really think about what is it that I'm willing to share and how transparent am I being, there's a feeling of vulnerability that happens when we really are transparent. And I'm not saying that we, pull all the covers back and show things that shouldn't be, made visible to everybody in the team or outside the organization. But there's a lot of room for increased transparency, and especially as you look at more and more folks that are coming into the workforce and what's important to them, that transparency is very important. And it's really a way that you can demonstrate that you're extending trust is by sharing that kind of level of detail with them. And Jen, I know you talk about this kind of thing all the time as well. So I don't know if there's something more you wanted to add to that.
Well, I think the idea of vulnerable, transparent communication with others as a way of demonstrating trust is critical. And we have to share the good, the bad, and the ugly, right? So we have, and I had a number of survey folks over the course of this fall's retreat surveys say that to their leaders. We wish you would share the good, the bad, and the ugly. We want to know how things stand, and it's a super common request. That's not an unusual request, and it's also not unusual as a leader to try to like hold a stiff upper lip and try to make things seem better or perfect because you don't want people to be afraid that they aren't perfect. Right. But folks, when we share with our people what our challenges are in the organization or in our department or with this service line or this niche or with this particular engagement or whatever it might be, when we're straight about that, when we're palms up and we're honest, we don't have to be dramatic and we don't have to be negative, but we could just be straight about here are some of the challenges we're facing. People usually surprise you with rising up and helping solve the challenges. Yeah. And so I do think great leaders trust their people with good news and bad news, with with hopes and dreams. Leaders say, these are my hopes and dreams, or this is what my vision is. You guys talked about vision last week.
Exactly.
And I risk the room. I risk you all saying, you're out of your mind. I don't care. I don't think we can do that. Or, or risk in my partnership, I might say, well, this is what I'm hoping for. My partners might say, we don't want that. And I risk that by sharing honestly. But man, do I build trust with others by doing it? People know, like, I know where she stands. I know what she thinks. I know where we are. I know what we're going to need to do. I know what she's hoping for. I've shared what I'm hoping for. And now we can put those together and not only be trusting and trusted, but we could be unified, which is like a holy grail of a relationship. And you want your partnership unified. You want your team, your HR team unified. You want your service lines unified, your industry niche segment folks unified. So this is all a part of that. The other thing is about trust, and it's really an important thing to think about is that trust can be broken.
Yeah.
And trusted leaders acknowledge that. That's part of transparency. Is when trust is broken, and that's where Um, Talking straight is required. We have to talk straight. We have to say, hey, you said you were going to do this, but I haven't seen it yet. How come? Or I thought we agreed to this. And the recap said we agreed to this, but that's not what's happening. What can we do about that? Like straight talking, addressing gaps in expectation, addressing moments where trust feels like it's not being reinforced, it's being eroded.
Yeah.
That's part of a trusting environment too, as I muster the courage to share with you transparently that my feelings were hurt by that, or I felt diminished when you said that in that meeting, or whatever it is. I try to right wrongs and I talk straight. I try to, really address things that don't work in our relationship as part of me trusting you.
Right.
And man, that's advanced level trust leadership, but it's so powerful.
Yeah.
Um, Samantha, I was with a big partner group last week, and we were talking about a whole bunch of different stuff. But we talked about relationship messes.
Mhm.
Relationships are messy. They're messy. And like we have miscommunications and we have, we're running too fast and I thought you were gonna, and then I did it. You thought I stepped on your toes and blah, 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 blah. There's all this stuff we do
Yeah.
and it makes it messy. And so we're making messes constantly at home, in our relationships, in our community organizations, at work, little messes here or there. A lot of us brush past those messes, ignore them, pretend they're not there. We smooth over them or past them. We don't acknowledge them. And we leave them. And what happens when you leave messes, it's kind of like not picking up after your dog on the trail. Over time, the trail gets a little messy and it gets a little gnarly to be on. And relationships can get messy and not fun anymore, or not like, I don't want to, it's hard to be in a relationship with you. I don't want to go to lunch with you anymore because we have too many messes
Yeah.
between us. Our
There's
relationship
too
has
many landmines to try and step around.
yeah, it's too much pile up between us. And so great leaders who are going to demonstrate trust, they acknowledge disappointment and they also take responsibility for disappointment.
Yeah.
They try to take 100% responsibility for the messes and they try to clean them up and make real efforts to acknowledge them, not blame, not make people wrong, but just say, hey, that didn't go as well as I would have hoped. And I'm sorry for whatever part I played in that. And I think we should debrief. I would like your feedback so that it could go better next time. I would like to know what I could do differently so it could go better next time. And they practice cleaning up messes. And I do think that that's something in our profession, our accounting profession, we tend to be conflict avoidant, accommodating. We want to keep harmony at all times, kumbaya to the max. And that doesn't support cleaning up messes.
Right. And it really is beyond communication, like you said. I mean, you really started to go beyond where we started, that it's a transparency of communication, but it really starts illustrating your character and your ability to, like you were just saying, I was going to say next, one of the things is that we do that doesn't demonstrate trust is admitting wrongs and clearing up wrongs. And when we do that, we're demonstrating 100% responsibility for the part that we played in that. And maybe we need to gather feedback on understanding what that part was to play. Maybe I'm not 100% sure. I'm pretty sure I had something I could have done differently to create an outcome that was more what we were driving to. Uh, but that takes, again, a lot of trust to say to another person that I was not my best in this scenario, and I want to be better next time. And again, it really does go back to, gosh, that feels vulnerable. Ooh, that's a vulnerable place to be. And vulnerability is very much a leadership attribute as well. And these two, trust and vulnerability, I think go hand in glove together, because we can't trust without being willing to be vulnerable with another person. And so, what you were saying too, Jen, is really this importance of giving feedback, not just acknowledgement, not just the positive, but giving feedback. And I was recently in a coaching call with a leader, and this was one of the things that came back in their feedback was exactly this point that even though very good at giving acknowledgement, the feedback was, I don't trust that I'm not actually getting the appropriate feedback from you. Now, that was the feedback. And I thought, man, that person's extending a lot of trust saying, I don't think I'm getting it. And that they aren't feeling trusted that leader could speak openly to them and let them know how they could be better. And so I thought it was a really great illustration of exactly what you were saying, that that vulnerability of the more junior person extending the trust, saying, this is what I want, and also saying, I don't feel trusted because you don't think that I can take this feedback, or maybe that I can get better, and maybe that's why you're not telling me how I could improve. And so that's how it can be interpreted. So it's not always a situation that maybe you're not telling them the feedback, but it's how it gets interpreted when you're not giving them a well-rounded purview, and really thinking about, again, who you're being and who they're being, and have an open conversation about that.
For sure. And so leadership is powerful and it's inspiring and it brings people together and it can cause people to be super motivated to accomplish amazing, uncommon outcomes and unbelievable results. That's what great leadership can do. And understanding the different attributes of great leadership are important. Today we examine trust, and trust is complicated. I was just, I, I was just trying to summarize it with some adjectives. It has too many. And so, we managed to get a good tour of it here in this HR huddle. But I think, we could even go deeper on that attribute and maybe even more frameworks to support it. But I really appreciated this conversation with you today, Samantha, and with
Me
our
too.
HR folks.
Yes, thank you for joining us, and let us know future topics. We're going to continue this series. It may not be as linear of every week. We may have important topics that pop in here. So if there is another topic you'd like us to discuss, or comments of what you see on the importance of trust, share your comments with us on social. So thank you, and have a phenomenal week.